What's going on, guys? Chau Codes here, doing another video. So recently I was actually called out. I was called out by another YouTuber by the name of Tech Rally. And to be honest, we're going to do a reaction video on his video. And I want you guys to take a look and see what you guys think about it. But I want to also show you my reactions and my thoughts to his video because unfortunately, I do think he has some really good advice for me. He definitely is a awesome person. He has some experience as a dev. And I watched this video as soon as he came out and it's got some gold in there. It's got some good advice for me, and I think that it will definitely help you guys out too. But I just wanted to make this video so that you guys could see my thoughts and what I think about his advice for me personally. But again, kind of related to all of you guys, depending on where you're at in your journey, and potentially help you guys out in terms of, you know, how to better balance things out. But anyways, let's just get into the video. Let's get some reactions going. And at the end of it, we'll get all of our thoughts together and see what we feel like. All right, so like I said, we're going to be watching Tech Rally's video. My number one tip for Chau Codes, coding advice. Again, this is coding tips for me, but this also is some tips that will relate to you. But let's just watch the video right now.
Hello developers, today I want to do a deep dive analysis on a YouTuber I closely follow named Chau Codes.
That's me.
He's in the same space as I am, which focuses on all things related to software development. In terms of numbers, he completely blows away my channel.
Okay, hold up. Before we keep going though, like can we admire how soothing this man's voice is? Like it's pretty soothing. When I first heard it, I was like, wow. Why can I not get my voice to sound like that? Like, it's pretty soothing if you ask me.
50,000 followers on Instagram, around 16,000 subscribers on YouTube, and already has a pretty growing Twitch community.
Yeah, we do.
If you don't know who Chau Codes is, he's a self-taught web developer who has been documenting his journey into becoming a full-time software engineer. What's unique about his story compared to a lot of different YouTubers is that he created his channel from the beginning, not as an experienced developer, but as someone completely new to the space.
So that's also a cool perspective that I never really thought about. Is I genuinely didn't even think about that, right? Like the only other person I thought of was Chau when he said that, and I did have to take a look at some other YouTubers, and not a lot of people start their journeys when they first start out. I think that a lot of people definitely get a little scared when you're first starting out as a dev, self-taught or not, and you start documenting your journey. I feel like it can be very, very scary. So that is something that is interesting to me. I never thought about that perspective. Never kind of went with that. You know, it's a very interesting look at things. It just never really clicked with me. But let's keep going.
Channel is very similar to Chau when he first started, and there is a lot of similarities in that, you know, they are friends, they do a podcast together, and they have a pretty similar situation in terms of how they've grown their channel and what they've been able to accomplish. As a fan, I'm a huge admirer of his channel. His growth has been crazy insane, and the numbers prove it. From a brand perspective, he obviously knows what he's doing. Imagine a guy with only 1,000 subscribers giving someone with 15,000 subscribers any type of advice in terms of branding, YouTube, and whatnot. If anything, I would love his opinion on how to grow my channel. But as an
Tech Rally. All right. So that being said, Tech Rally. I mean, if you want, brother, I got you. We as YouTubers, as content creators, we should be hitting each other up and giving each other advice. So if you're ever interested, just DM me or something and I got you. That's the one thing that I love doing is building brand and kind of growing this whole space. So if you're interested, just hit me. Collaboration is something that I love to do. It's hard to come by just because of how busy some of us get, but we need to collaborate. I think that's the only real way to grow. Is like you can only get so high, or you can only grow so much, and then at some point you'll plateau doing it as an individual. Same thing with like musicians or singers, something along those lines, right? They can only get so far by themselves. At some point they're going to need features. They're going to need some sort of collaboration with other musicians, other artists. So the thing is, if all of us in the space, right, in the tech space, coding space, doesn't matter, we're all kind of doing the same things, all around the same goals. So I absolutely would love to chat with you and do some sort of collaboration in terms of growing. And I don't think that the stigma of all of us having to have these certain numbers to collaborate with each other doesn't make sense to me. Just because I have these big numbers doesn't mean that I can't help someone else out. My friend Ricky, for example, is a prime example. I wanted to see her grow, and she's growing at an exponential rate, and she's growing in the ways that she wants to, right? She's finding her way. She's doing the things she wants to do. So those are the kinds of things that I love to see. I don't care if you have 500 followers, 600 followers, 1,000, 5,000, right? Just because I have the following that I have doesn't make me any better than anybody else. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, and we should definitely collaborate in terms of content creating to kind of do that. And in terms of the coding side, that's where you come in, because I have no experience. Zero. None. Nada. Let's keep going.
An experienced developer and a career coach, I do have some thoughts and advice. Chau codes, if you watch this video, ultimately it's up to you to decide if you want to take this advice, but I hope my ideas can bring a fresh perspective on what you ultimately want to accomplish in 2021. Without further ado, let's get it started.
Also, let me just pause right there and just say that, that is so cool that I didn't even prompt him to do this. He kind of just did it on his own, and that's really cool to see. That just shows you the community that we have. Literally, he is going out of his way to give me advice, and it's just, it's humbling, and it's awesome to see. So it's super, super cool. Let's keep going.
I recently saw a video where Chau talks about how he failed his technical interview. Prior to this video, he was streaming on Twitch, practicing leak code problems, talking about on Twitter, and I, along the rest of the community, was rooting for him. When I heard the news that he didn't make it to the next round, you can't help but feel sorry for him, especially since these opportunities don't come that often. It's a tough pill to swallow when dealing with failures, but I loved his response to it. He said he's going to learn from his mistakes and be more prepared next time. I would have loved to hear his perspective on what he would change differently moving forward next time, but if he was asking me for my help, this is what I would ask him.
So here's the thing, and I do want to touch on this slightly just because this is very important, is my approach has been very, very different now, and I do want to touch on that now. After going that initial, downward spiral of, failing that interview terribly. Honestly, it was probably the worst feeling I've ever had. And to go through those kinds of emotions and feel the way that I did was not something that I ever wanted to happen again. I felt so confident, like I said, going into that interview. I feel like I prepped so much, and I feel like I prepped a lot. But at the end of it, when I'm going out, it's it felt terrible. So my approach is doing the same things where I am doing leak code still. I'm reading Cracking the Coding Interview, and doing the same things essentially that I was doing prior to that interview. Just the approach as to how much I put in, how much effort. I guess you could say before, prepping for that interview, I was spending a lot of time cramming and really pushing myself and putting a lot of pressure on myself to really, really just be ready. But at the same time, I was sacrificing a lot of sleep. I was sacrificing a lot of time with my friends. I was sacrificing gym time to prep for this interview, all because of that added pressure I put on myself. Like Tech Rally said, like I've been telling myself, and like what other people understand, is being self-taught and being in a position that I'm in personally, and a lot of other people are, we don't get these opportunities very often, right? So sometimes you do feel like you need to go all out. You do need to put in extra effort into whatever it is you're doing. And in this case, it was the interview. So my approach has been step back a little bit. Lay back in terms of how much effort I put into it, right? So there needs to be a balance. The balance is what I was looking for. And I think that with the sacrifice of sleep and with the sacrifice of, overall, generally mental health, it wasn't healthy for me. And I think that really affected me when I went into the interview. So that's something that I've definitely changed in terms of my approach, is being healthier going into the interview. It doesn't just mean physically healthy. That means mentally and emotionally healthy. Emotionally, I was fine, right? I was feeling really confident going into the interview, but mentally I wasn't prepared in terms of understanding the difficulty that was about to come up. I wasn't prepared in the fact that I was going to let myself down, and I had way too many expectations. That's also a difference in the approach, is that the expectations now need to go down. You know what I mean? With the feedback from the video and with the feedback from all of you guys, it's understanding that these technical interviews are made to be extremely hard and harder than the work itself. So understanding that now and going into it with that mindset, essentially, it helps a little bit more with the letdown and the expectations. So I am not feeling like shit when I'm done, bomb or not. So that's kind of my approach, and that's how things are going to change. But anyways, that's kind of my take on what has been happening. So let's keep going.
One simple question. What is more important to you right now? Finding a software developer job or growing the Chau Codes brand?
It's a very interesting standpoint, because obviously in the position right now, I would love to grow both, but it is really hard to balance both, because getting your first gig, very, very hard. Making content, very, very time consuming. So it's the both things. It's which one do you put more effort to, right? And that's kind of what he's going to get to.
The answer to this question is very important because it ultimately determines how you should prioritize your daily, weekly, and monthly goals. Yes, a lot of YouTubers and even myself, I recommend creating a brand and documenting your journey. But ultimately, the reason why it's recommended is because it's supposed to help you find that job. At this point, I could argue that the Chau Codes brand is big enough to be recognized, and now is the right time to just really focus on what it is that you're trying to do. And if becoming a software developer is that case, I think some reprioritization is kind of needed.
So that's kind of what we were touching on, right? Is the reprioritization of what it is I'm doing. And I 100% agree. I think that I go very, very hard into creating content. I think that, it's something that I love to do, so I can get carried away. Right now, I'm making content, right? I'm filming a YouTube video, I'm streaming at the same time. It's essentially very consuming in terms of your life and time. And I completely agree. The fact that, the brand is what it is. The Chau Codes brand. It's weird for me saying that because I don't like calling it a brand, because it is me. It is a personal brand, but at the end of the day, it is a brand. So that is interesting to see that, yes, this brand is big enough to where people know it. I hate saying that because I want to be humble about it. I don't want to be like this cocky kind of guy, like, my brand is so big. But at the same time, it is, right? I go on Twitter and I go on Instagram, and, there is a following. There is some sort of notoriety where people, when they hear Chau Codes, you kind of know what it's about. You know who it is. You know who I am. You know what I'm about. Not all the time, obviously. It's not that big. But I have gotten opportunities, and I have gotten some gigs from it, obviously, with Coding Phase. Coding Phase found it through a YouTube video that I made. And that was amazing. That's how we initially connected. And then we got on Twitter and we started DMing. And eventually led to a phone call and things of that nature. And now I can use that and leverage it for opportunities, which is what he's touching on. And I completely agree. So now it's the question of, do I stay where I'm at, in terms of, the following, and use it to leverage and then get these opportunities and then dial back with the content? Because from the outside looking in, I make a lot of content. It looks like I consistently push out videos because I do try to push out at least 2 a week on YouTube. I try to post every other day on Instagram, and I try to tweet all the time and make videos, blah, 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 blah. So there is a lot of work that goes into managing all those social channels and making content. So now the thing is, where do I find the balance, and where do I have to pull back in order to really focus on getting the dev job? Because ultimately, yes, I want a dev job, but how much is content taking away from me? So let's keep moving in on what he thinks and what his advice is on that.
A fellow YouTuber who has a full-time job, I know the time commitment required to put out content, stream, and grow a brand. My channel is a lot smaller, I do admit, and I know I don't make as much content. But if I'm struggling with just 1 video a week, I can't imagine how much effort it takes on his end to manage his videos, manage his streams, manage his Instagram handle. These are a lot of things on his plate that he has to deal with on a daily basis. There is a saying that if you are committed to everything, you are committed to nothing. This saying resonates.
Wait, let me see that again.
That if you are committed to everything, you are committed to nothing.
It's interesting. It's an interesting quote. It's an interesting quote to go by, right? because I do feel like I am very committed to everything. And then in the limelight, am I really committed to anything in terms of like my end goals? So
this saying resonates with me a lot in my own coding journey. When I joined a coding bootcamp school back in 2015, that meant saying no to hanging out with friends, going on trips, saying no to weddings, and any type of social events. This was my time to really buckle down and commit everything into becoming a software developer. I just want to emphasize this is not a question of effort. I can tell right away that this is a person who is willing to put in the work to get things done. But
okay, well, at least that's there. At least you can see the effort. I'm very happy. I was very, 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 very worried that the effort was not seen. I literally put so much effort into it, and it could just, I don't know. It can get skewed in some people's perspective that the effort isn't there or the effort is put into the wrong things. And I read the comments, obviously. I read a lot of the comments, and a lot of people say that is you're putting efforts into the wrong thing. So I'm like, okay, well, I get a little defensive in the fact that, yes, I may be putting a lot of effort into content creation, but it's something that I love to do. So why am I being questioned on why I put so much effort into it? But when you take a step back and you hear the words that Tech Rally is saying, and then you start to understand like, okay, I see what you're saying now. I kind of understand that, yes, maybe a lot, 80% of the effort is put into something that should be dialed back a little bit and moved somewhere else. So that is something that I'm starting to understand. Obviously being new to content creation, essentially, it's only been a little over a year now since I've started everything. It's very, very new to me. So balancing time and balancing creating versus, improving myself in terms of my career, very, very hard. You kind of have to take these steps back and look at things in a broader perspective. So that's essentially, what I've gotten from what he said so far.
But if you feel like you're spreading yourself thin, creating videos, creating Instagram posts, streaming, and trying to land that first job, it just feels like a recipe for getting burnt out quickly.
Yes, definitely is. Definitely is. Burnout is a very, very big thing. Obviously, we've all gone through it. We all talk about it. I've gone through it plenty of times, and I think I have a good system for dealing with it so far. Obviously, again, looking from the outside in, it could look like I'm doing a lot, but I have systems in place, such as the gym, such as time with friends, where I am not consumed by working all the time. It may look like I do, but the fact that I do love what I'm doing helps in kind of setting aside burnout and putting it and halting it a little bit.
If your number one priority is to land that job, I would suggest to him to make less content and use that extra time to practice the leak code questions, do more React style projects, work on Go, all these other various things that you can work in private. Streaming is great for content, but it's so hard to focus when you're trying to work and also respond to questions at the same time.
So that is a very, very big thing. When we were doing the long stretches of leak code, when we were doing when we do coding streams of me building projects or me working on something and learning something, it is very, very, I wouldn't say distracting. Obviously with streaming, you have to be interactive with the chat. You kind of have to be entertaining. You have to be interesting. So that is the hard part with balancing streaming. 100%. It's an art form in and of itself. And for those of you guys who stream or watch streamers, you understand this concept. You understand that streamers do have to be a little bit extra in the fact that, they're going a little bit all out and, being more spontaneous, I guess you could say, in order to feed off of the chat and make you guys stay and watch and view, right? So that's the thing. It does get a little hard when you are streaming, especially when you're prepping for an interview or especially when you're making a project for work or side project. It can get very tough. For me, I have found times where it gets very tough when I stream. I am streaming right now while I'm making this video, but I'm obviously 100% focused in on making the content, but the content is interactive. You get to watch me respond, so people in turn want to essentially watch that. But when I'm learning leak code, that may not be very beneficial or effective in the sense that I may not be retaining as much knowledge because I am also focused on chat. or with the added bonus, not bonus, it's not really a bonus, but the added effect of chat not knowing what I'm doing, and then they see leak code and they instantly want to spew out answers. That's the hard part, is I have to look at chat, but sometimes I'll see an answer. It's just like, oh, okay, like I just got an answer to the question. I don't know if I learned anything. So that is a hard part to dealing and managing content creation versus learning. Would it have been better for me to learn offline? Absolutely, I agree. I think it would have been a lot better for me to code offline and learn leak code offline. But at the same time, as a content creator, it's hard for me not to stream when it's so much fun. And that's the balance that you have to have, is as a content creator, your mind then turns into content. I'm literally outside like, what can I film right now for content? What can I grab my camera for and just take a picture of for content? And it consumes you. So that's the thing, is what's the balance there? Where do you dial back a little bit and then, focus in on, again, improving yourself for your career and as a person, as opposed to making content all the time where it may not essentially be beneficial for you.
Even Christian admits in one of his older videos, could I have been a better developer if I just made less content? Could he have been that top senior level developer if he had made that one less video and dedicated that time to actually honing his craft? In my eyes, the situation Christian is in and the situation Chau Codes is in is a little bit different, in that Christian found a job fairly quickly and he was more or less at a crossroads between growing the brand or continuing to hone his craft to become a senior developer.
Yeah.
Chau Codes is in a situation where he needs a company to take a chance on him. As someone who took a non-traditional route in becoming a software developer, I would emphasize to him how important landing that first job is to their careers. The level up you get learning from experienced developers is just second to none. If Chau Codes' current schedule was a 50-50 split between studying and brand development, I would encourage him to do a 70-30 or even an 80-20 split with more weight on studying to become a software developer.
So what he's saying is, obviously it would be my decision as to what the split would be, but essentially I get what he's talking about and I understand. I'd have to find that split, but splitting up the time and effort in content creation and studying, So, 80-20, 80 into studying, 20 into content. That would genuinely dial back a lot of the content that I make. I'm constantly on the move in terms of making videos, taking pictures, all the stuff that I do, podcast. There's a lot of projects that I have and, there's a lot to do. So for me, I agree. I do need to find the split. I don't know if 80-20 is going to be doable for me because as of this moment, I do rely on content creation to bring in some sort of money. So, it's hard for me to not put a little bit more focus on content creation when I am sort of reliant on it for a source of income. As of this moment, yes, I don't have a software engineering job. I have a gig with Coding Phase, but that's upon project completion that I get paid. I don't necessarily have, a normal 9-to-5 when it comes to software engineering or anything like that. So 80-20, get it, 70-30, maybe. But ultimately, yes, I'd have to find some sort of split that's doable. 50-50 might be the way to go. Having some form of system in place that I think I need to set for myself is something that I need to think about when it comes to balancing out the both. So we're going to have to see what's going to work for me, because again, I do rely on content creation a lot in terms of not just growing the brand, but bringing in money. And I know it sucks to say that. I don't do it for the money, but at this point in time, it's the only thing that's really, really bringing in my money. And being able to live is something we all need to be able to do, right? So as of this moment, content creation is it. I have had some freelancing gigs and things like that, but that isn't very consistent, not as consistent as content creation has been. So understanding that now, there is some load balancing that needs to take place for sure.
With coding interviews, yes, you can try to cram as much as you can and put a lot of hours before the day comes, but great results come from the incremental growth you make through practice and consistency. This not only applies to coding, but anything in life. He is super consistent with content creation, streaming, posting, and you can already see the results from it. He's obviously killing it with his brand, and a huge Discord community has been created from it. But to a certain extent, how much of this brand growing is really affecting...
Dang it, I forgot to turn off my alerts. This is staying in the video, but Ionezo Code, thank you for the follow.
Your chances of becoming a software developer. Imagine if he put that effort and long nights that he spent editing videos more focused on coding and deep diving the nuances of the coding languages. Obviously, this situation is about the give and take. When you switch from one priority to the other, something's gotta give. As someone who has coached many self-taught developers and coding bootcamp grads, I've heard many different and unique stories of why they can't find a job. So those of you who made it this far and you are a self-taught or a coding bootcamp grad, you might feel like this might not apply to you, but through this advice, there is actually something applicable to your coding journey. I would ask the same thing to you. How are you prioritizing your commitment to becoming a software developer? Becoming a software developer as a profession isn't easy. Let's just admit that. If you're
100%, it's not easy. That journey is very, very difficult, very, very hard. Obviously, it's not easy as a self-taught dev. It's not easy. It's still hard as even if you have a computer science degree, right? Like you've heard this. I have heard stories and read articles of people who have degrees and still find it very difficult to get through the interview process and things like that. Especially now through COVID, teams may not have the budget or things like that. So it's very, very difficult. I agree. And self-taught or not, whether you have a degree or you're self-taught, I 100% get it. It's very, very hard regardless of your background. And that is the general takeaway. Just because the video says #1 tip for Chau codes does not mean this doesn't apply to you. And I've said this at the beginning of the video. Understanding that everybody has certain variables in your own journey that may or may not take away from your time or what you're able to commit to learning how to code. People have full-time jobs. People have kids. People have a family to take care of. There's some other certain scenario that runs in your life that is very particular to you. It works in the same sense with me in content creation. I have essentially Chau Codes is my baby, right? It is me at the same time, but it is work. It is a job that I have to do. I find joy in doing that job, but again, like I've said, it is an income source for myself. So that is something that I do need to take care of. Same applies to you. Maybe you have a son, a daughter, couple kids, a wife, family in general, a job to do as well. You've got a lot of time that you need to commit to something. And then at the same time, you have to balance that and find time to study. And whether you're making a career change or whether you're trying to get into this space, that is the general takeaway that Tech Rally is talking about, is you need to find that balance because you have to understand how hard it is, how competitive it is to get in. Clearly, I've had experiences where I've now just been punched in the face by companies because of how hard it is. It is a very, very competitive space to be, but it is also a fun space to be in the sense that you can actually teach yourself how to do it. But then becomes the variable of how do you schedule your time and how much effort can you and should you put in. So that's the thing, is figure out what certain variables you have in your journey and what you're able to give and what you're able to take is essentially what Tech Rally is talking about. And I think it's great advice for everybody in the sense, it doesn't just apply to me.
Let's just admit that. If you're not prioritizing it enough in your life, I'm sorry to say, but you won't become one.
Oof. Tough words to swallow.
Developer interviews are so unique in a sense that they're very black and white in terms of if you get the job or not. Yes, there is a aspect of being a cultural fit and things like that, but in the end, if you fail the coding interview, you're highly likely not to get that job. Chau Codes, like I said, if you see this video, I hope that this brings more of a fresh perspective on your coding journey. Obviously, there's just so much I can learn from you in terms of growing a brand, but as someone who has been in a similar path or journey as you, going from knowing nothing to where I am now, I hope that this advice was helpful in any way. And for everyone else, take this advice and think about how are you prioritizing your life in terms of trying to become a software developer. If you have any questions, I opened up a Discord channel and I have a link in the description.
I'm going to let this go so we can plug it.
I would love to chat with you and hear about your journey. Developers, it was a great chat and I wish you luck on your coding journey. Bye.
All right. So that was the video. Definitely agree with, pretty much everything he's saying. It's a very, very difficult journey to follow, and it's a very difficult journey to, still be a part of. It requires a lot of mental fortitude. It requires a lot of discipline, and it requires a lot of effort, essentially, right? It's hard. It's a very, very hard pill to swallow in the sense that, yes, if you don't commit enough time or you don't put enough effort, you may not get that job. So that is the overall general sense of my response is I did not get called out. I didn't get called out by Tech Rally. He's obviously, he didn't have to do this. He didn't have to make this video to give me a tip. This was not planned. This was not, talked about between me and him. This wasn't some sort of collaboration. But I definitely wanted to make a response because I found this video very helpful and I found this video very cool in the sense that you have an experienced dev who's gone a non-traditional route as well and can see that some other things or some similarities, of what I've gone through in his journey. So to be able to kind of reflect on what he's done already and pass it down to me and make sure that I'm down the same path so that I can get a full-time dev job and actually become a software engineer is amazing. I appreciate it, Tech Rally. Thank you so much for making the video. Hopefully you guys got something out of this and kind of now have like he said at the end of the video, a better perspective on what it is you should be doing now in terms of time. Time is a huge factor. And like we talked about in the video, there are different variables that you need to go off of and kind of play around with because your journey is very specific to you and unique to you. Don't try to emulate someone else because they have other things going on in their lives. I have other things going on in my life. Not everybody is a content creator. Not everyone has a family. Not everyone is going to school. Take your specific journey. Take bits and pieces from everybody, but not, to the T, not to the L. And apply it to yourself, but adjust it to your schedule, adjust it to your lifestyle, right? You may want to go to the gym and you don't want to sacrifice that. Well, you got to plan around it. You may not be able to allocate, 4 hours of time to coding because you have a 2-year-old, so you need to spend a lot of time with him or her. That's fine. Work around them, right? You may need to sacrifice sleep. You may need to sacrifice something else, but obviously stay healthy, right? Like that's still a priority. But like I said, you need to find what works for you and balance that out. A lot of this is load balancing. A lot of this is figuring out your own schedule because your journey, like I said, is very, very unique to you. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys. Hopefully that my response to Tech Rally was very helpful to you guys. If you guys want to check him out, his links to his social channels will be in the description box below so you guys can check out some of his content. I really do enjoy what he's got. He's got a very soothing voice. The man should do some ASMR. So Tech Rally, when you watch this video, we need to talk because we need to get you an ASMR channel. The voice on point. That's going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, but I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.